Hi everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel and welcome back to 2026. This year we want to give you some more longer form content to allow me to have a bit more time to deep dive into different things for you this year. And today I want to start with strategy for 2026. So before we start, please give us a like and subscribe, and then you will be notified when new videos appear. It's not going to be that many, not going to be bombarding you daily, so please do sign up. And secondly, I'm going to talk about 3 strategies that I think will really work for 2026, but please hang around to the end of the video because there are 2 strategies I want to talk about which I think are probably ones best left in the past. So yeah, please hang around till the end and we can have a look at that. So strategy number 1, commercial to residential conversions. I think this is a great thing to look at for this year. It's an area that's been growing now for a few years, which has really been helped along by changes in planning. So there's lots of things that you can do now under permitted development, which you couldn't do previously. That is a great thing to look at because when you're looking at funding, the lender's always looking at what have you got planning for, what are you able to do, what's your backup plan. You know, they need to know that you can do something with this property. So even if there are things that you would like to do differently, so for example under permitted development, you may not be able to move windows, or there's certain things that you can't do, but if there's something that you can do under PD which works and the GDV is reasonable, that's a great place to start. And that means that the funding can be based on that option as a backup, and then you'd have an ideal option with a planning application. It just makes the financing process much easier. So why do I think it's a great strategy? Well, a few reasons. Since COVID, we have seen a decline in the high street. We've seen more people working from home or hybrid working patterns. So we've got less office space, less retail space being used. There's plenty of vacant properties out there. They are an underperforming asset for the vendor. So the vendor will be in a good place to want to get rid of those properties. So that's a great start. Look, traditionally the value of commercial property has been less than residential. However, I will caveat that by saying that a lot of vendors assume that you'll be making a huge amount of profit from the deal, so therefore they're pricing their commercial assets a lot higher. So just bear that in mind. The deal needs to stack. There are additional costs when you're converting commercial to residential. You will need a PCC, so a professional completion certificate. So it's like an additional guarantee, similar to what you'd have on a new build property, which you don't need on a residential conversion. So there are additional things that you need to look at. Don't go into it thinking that it's super simple, but as long as the numbers work, there is plenty of opportunity for that sort of deal to be done this year. Second strategy that I want to talk about is HMO conversions. This has been going on for the whole time that I've been in commercial mortgage broking, so coming up to 10 years, and we've really seen a boom in this industry, or this part of the industry. So as we all know, cost of living is going up, people are purchasing properties later. The younger generation are probably less likely to want to buy property. They want that mobility, they want to be able to move around. Also, they want something that looks nice, that instant gratification, which professional HMOs offer, which property that you'd be looking to buy as a first-time buyer aren't necessarily going to offer you that. So for lots and lots of different reasons, HMOs are becoming more popular, particularly high-end professional ensuite HMOs. So why do I think it's a good strategy? A couple of reasons. Mainly the combination of the profitability of the project itself combined with the profitability of the asset long term. So if you're looking in the right locations with the right prices, obviously you've got to be careful of your build costs, and you're looking at converting property to a high-end minimum of 6 bedrooms, all en suites, nice big rooms, you can look at an investment value on the refinance, which hugely increases the profitability of that project in itself. So there's loads of examples that I can give you of properties where the clients have made money back just on the refurbishment themselves, which is massive. And then when you're looking at longer term yield and performance of the asset, the profit that you will make and the yield that you will get will be far higher than a standard single let property. So yeah, I don't think HMOs are going anywhere. I think if anything, they're becoming more popular. I think valuers are more open to looking at investment values. Lenders are more open to looking at investment values. I think it's a great strategy to be looking at if you're not already. And thirdly, I want to talk about blocks of flats. So this is an area that I think is probably more emerging. Traditionally, people have converted houses to flats, probably without the right planning and without the right building control, if there even was any building control around at the end. So there is a lot of older properties that have been converted, and there's also scope to convert larger properties into flats as well. As I've mentioned already, obviously we know there's a housing crisis, we need more properties, we need more places to live, so converting larger houses to multiple dwellings is great. You will need to go through a full planning process. You are creating new dwellings if you're not buying something that's already been converted, so just watch out for that, but it's a great area to look at. You can start small. You can look at smaller freehold blocks, 2, 3, 4 properties. There are larger ones as well, but yeah, there's a huge mix there. The reason why it works as a property strategy is similar to HMOs in that you can do the refurbishment and conversion and add value to that in itself, and then also the rental that you will get for 3 flats versus 1 house, for example, will be far higher. So the yield that you'll get on that property longer term will be better. Yeah, so again, great strategy, something to look out for, something that other people potentially aren't looking at as well. And there's a huge market for HMOs in particular areas. So flats might be something that is sort of overlooked. There are other benefits. You probably will end up with longer term tenants in a flat over an HMO. You haven't got to pay for bills, so it's not that aggro that you're worrying about. And yeah, probably more settled tenants. They're not living with each other, so there's less likely chance of arguments and bits and pieces like that. So yeah, something to look out for. So they're my 3 strategies that I would look at for this year. 2 things that I wouldn't look at for 2026. So the big one is flips. So a flip is when you're purchasing a property, doing it up and selling it. So I will caveat this by saying, if you are open to keeping the property and it works as a rental, fine, you've got that backup option. Where we see people struggle with flips at the moment, I've had a few examples where they just haven't worked, is where you are looking to buy a property in order to sell it. Like, the profit is not there to keep it. You would need to sell it to make the money that you need to out of that property. You may have quite a quick turnaround in terms of the refurbishment. It may be quite a quick amount of work that needs to be done and put it back on the open market. But the market for selling properties is super slow. So you could purchase your property, you might only have, 10 to 12 weeks, say, on a refurbishment, get it all staged, looking beautiful. But it is more than possible for the sale to take in total more than 9 months, which is all you've got left on your 12-month bridge. So if you've had a couple of sales fall through, if there's a big chain involved, if you've just got some really awful solicitors, if you've got people changing your mind, if it takes you quite a while to get the sale agreed in the first place, there's loads of things where that could go wrong. And if you can only make a profit out of it by selling it at the end, and you're working that off, say having a bridge for 6 months, for example, which would have been realistic a couple of years ago, that will all those things have moved, all those timescales have moved, and you may end up not making anywhere near as much profit as you thought you were going to. You may end up with an extension on your bridge, you may end up having to keep it because you can't sell it. There's loads of variables. So for now, I would say leave the flips and try and keep look at something else. The other thing that I think is a market which we're seeing more of, which is a bit of a tricky one, is existing HMOs. So we're seeing this particularly where we've got older landlords who have owned properties for many years. They've probably owned them in their personal name. They probably haven't invested as much as they need to in terms of the upkeep of those properties. And now with all the changes, we've seen all the tax changes, we've seen the Renters Reform Bill, we've seen the changes in licensing requirements, and we've also seen external pressure from other landlords really raising the standards of HMOs, which means that the poorer quality ones are just not getting the right tenants in. So we are seeing lots of landlords selling up, moving on, which is a fantastic opportunity for newer investors. The issue is around the prices that people are willing to sell these properties for and what people think that they're worth and what they think they should be buying them for versus what they are actually worth. And I've seen many examples recently where people are trying to buy these existing HMOs for a price and the valuation is coming in considerably lower than what that price is. So can you automatically request an investment value or expect to sell your property for an investment value when it's in a really poor condition, if it's got 6 bedrooms but only 1 bathroom, if it hasn't had any work carried out on it for a number of years? The answer is no. I think a lot of the time, particularly when properties are in an Article 4 area or just when they're licensed, people expect a premium to be able to be paid for those properties. But in reality, if they need work doing to them, if they're not in Article 4 particularly, there's no benefit of that over another property because you're still going to have to do the works to it. You're still going to have to apply for a new licence. The licence is not transferable. So if it's in Article 4, yes, I agree that there is a premium, but if it's outside of Article 4, there's not any benefit to buying that property over something else in reality because there's still works to be done and a new licence to be applied for. If the only thing I would say, if you are in an Article 4 area and you are looking to get into an area where it's very difficult to get planning, so areas like the centre of Bath, Nottingham, there are pockets across the country where you just can't get planning for HMOs. And in that instance, you are going to have to pay a premium for those properties because the property will be worth what somebody else is willing to buy it for. All those things are quite specific to that particular market. But because you're paying a premium for the property in the first place, the opportunity to add value to that property is not there in the same way because you've already paid that premium. If you're doing a conversion and getting the planning yourself, the uplift comes from that hassle factor that somebody else hasn't got to do that. So you're already paying for the hassle, the hassle factor's been taken out of your hands by the current owner. So you can't have your cake and eat it, as always. So have a look carefully at what you're buying, but of the examples that I've seen, there's been plenty where people are overpaying or trying to overpay for properties that they don't really need to be overpaying for, in my opinion. I appreciate that there is a time and place for buying existing HMOs in terms of if you can't be bothered to do the works to that property and you want someone else to have done it already for you, like, absolutely fine, I totally get that. But you've got to understand that you are often paying a premium for that, which is not necessarily going to be reflected in the valuation. So yeah, they're my top tips for this year. I hope that you find that useful. I will be back. Please like and subscribe, and share the video if you think that anybody else that you know would benefit from that. If you've got any further questions, then please drop me a message. We can arrange a call. I'm happy to have a chat. But yeah, see you soon.